what was the hardest part of writing the whole series?
Originally, Twilight was super easy and fast to write. And then I wrote Forever Dawn, which is also super fast. And then I had to go back and go into New Moon. And when I did that, that was the first time that I knew that people were going to be waiting for this book. My editors were waiting, people were going to read this, and that was immense pressure for me. Do the lying to myself thing, but I could only succeed so far. And so going forward, that was really rough. And I thought that was the hardest thing until I tried to write Midnight Sun. And then I realized the real hardest thing is writing a book when you already have a script and you have to follow every word.
Did you enjoy writing the story more from Bella or Edward's perspective?
Bella is like the happiest person in the world compared to Edward. And in Twilight, she is falling in love and everything's beautiful. And that is a good mental state to be in, right? Sure, there's mystery, sure, there's danger, but mostly there's falling in love. With Edward, mostly there is self-castigation, there is suffering, there is guilt, not as much fun.
So I was wondering, what was the hardest chapter to convert from like Bella's perspective in Twilight to Edward's perspective in Midnight Sun?
There were two elements that made it the hardest, and the hardest chapter was the meadow scene. I'm locked into a chapter where the whole thing is very intense conversation. And so everything he does has been mapped out. Everything he says, she's paid a great deal of attention to. So I'm writing within those constraints. So that's hard already. Any chapter where it's a lot of talking is hard. And then I also know it's kind of the most important chapter. And it was the first chapter I wrote of Twilight, and there was so much weight to it, and I wanted it to be special. And there's nothing that's harder than knowing I've got to make this special, and I don't know how. So that was a challenging one. And I would guess that I probably spent 2 years off and on that chapter. And I would do a piece and I would get mad and I'd walk away. And that probably took me the longest of anything, just forcing myself back in to get through that chapter. It was very, very tough.
Hi. Jenny had some questions about added scenes.
Okay.
For instance, like the Christmas scene between Edward and Carlisle, or the different facts that we learn about Bella. Like she's a Star Wars fan. Did you know that the entire time you were writing the series, or were these little surprises that you kind of discovered as you were writing Midnight Sun alone?
I don't know if I'd call them surprises, but it's a good catch. And so when I'm writing Twilight and Edward's asking her all these questions, and she is totally uninterested in herself, and so she glosses over it. He asked me a million questions and I answered them because, I knew that she didn't want to get into all these things about herself because all she cares about is him. That is it. And at the time, I kind of thought about some of the things that she might be revealing and some of the things she might be saying, but they weren't set in stone. And when people like to ask me things like, what did Carlisle and Esme do on a Tuesday in September of 1956? And I could do that. I could create a story. But if I do, then it's done. And I might at some point need a story from that time period that then doesn't work with that. The same way with the birthdays. Everyone wants to know when their birthdays are because it's not in the guide. It's like, but I might need that. What if I need a birthday party in the next book and I need one in October and it doesn't work? So I leave it in the ether and it's floating out there. And then as I'm like, okay, I need a flashback now that gives some insight into Edward and Carlisle's relationship and also is like a trigger for why Edward left Carlisle. And so then I kind of pulled together the pieces of what I knew that they were doing and whatnot. But like that specific, the Christmas scene, that didn't exist anywhere in my head until I was looking for a way to do those things.
A lot of people ask too about other stories for other characters.
Right. And like I said before, I'm not going to write Alice and Jasper's love story because it's in the past. I know what happens. The ending is already determined. But in
it's gone.
The guide to Twilight, which is several years old, you get some real insight into those things. And then they made the movies that we did with Women in Film and Tongle and Lionsgate. Brought those to life in short films. And so that's another good place if you're itching for more Alice and Jasper.
Yeah, just like when he finally kind of realized like, oh my God, I'm in love. This is unbelievable. Like until he had gotten to that point, just like had he, like, I don't think he was really looking for anything, but I just didn't know, like, had he just kind of given up on it.
See,
totally.
I don't see him as ever saying like, well, I'm almost 100 now and I guess love's not for me, there's Tanya, but I'm not feeling it, and I guess I'll just be alone forever. I don't see him ever having that internal conversation, because I feel like he'd be like, love is stupid. He sees so much in people's brains, and I have everything I need in and of myself. I've never met a person that would add anything to what I've already got. Very arrogant, by the way, very arrogant.
Yeah.
And he says in the book, like, love always looks stupid until it's too late for you, basically. I don't think he had given up on love, but I don't think he had any intention of looking for it either. He didn't feel like anything was missing.
Lexi wants to know what the craziest, best, or funniest thing you have done during this quarantine. Can I answer for you?
I mean, it's not very crazy or exciting, but go ahead.
Stephanie has really gotten into
artificial succulents.
Fake succulents.
So I had this empty mantle. I really wanted it to look nice, but it had some difficulties because the TV was 8 inches over the mantle and it filled the whole thing. My husband likes big TVs. It's a thing with him. And so I needed something low, and I'm like, I could do like some pots with succulents. There's like 40 pots on there now. They look great. It looks great. But then I put some other places, and I got kind of addicted to ordering my succulents, and I keep making new ones, and it's a problem. I have to stop.
This is from Isabella. She is wondering if it was hard, because it's been so long, was it hard for you to get in sync again with how the characters, and especially Edward, thought and acted in Twilight? Or was it a relief to go back to the world of vampires and romance?
I think a lot of people think, because there's been such a time period, that I stepped away from Midnight Sun for like 5 years, 10 years, and then wrote it all in the last 2 years up before publication. And that's not true. I did not leave. Everybody else went on with their lives, and I have not been able to leave this world. I've been working on this the whole time. There have been significant chunks of time when I was working on other books, and then but even in those times, I would still have my trusty pad of Post-its by the bed. And when I woke up in the middle of the night, I thought, oh, Edward would say this. Right. Edward would think this. Oh, Alice should have this. I would write it down, and then when I had a chance to get back, I'd go and type it in. So I was kind of always there. So there was no sense of coming back to anything. I just lived there. Yeah. I've been living there for a really long time.
Given how much YA literature has changed in the decade that has passed since Twilight came out, and how female protagonists are sometimes portrayed in YA books, is there anything you think you would change about Bella or any of the other girls in the saga?
Well, I mean, like I said before, I don't get to change the characters. They are who they are. And I think we have a real range of female personalities to look at. And I wouldn't change them, because there are different protagonists that are different than them, and we should have all of the protagonists. We should have 1 million female protagonists, and they should all be their own person and make their own choices, and that necessitates that some of them are going to make choices that some people don't agree with, right, and others are going to make choices that they think are great, but they should all be allowed to exist. We should have all the female protagonists and all of the differences, because women are all different, and none of us are this. When women get, something that women do, it drives me nuts, because we're all totally different individuals. And so I wouldn't change them because someone else's protagonist is different. No, they should all get to exist.
Yeah. So a lot of people have been asking about what's next after Breaking Dawn. So a couple people in the group, Kevin N., Joanna, Julieta, Kianzi, they had sort of similar questions. So I'm going to just pick out pieces of that. Kevin really loves the mythology and the backstories of the other characters. Do you have any plan to expand upon other characters' backstories?
As it comes up in future stories, I don't know how much of past things will become relevant, but I could. The world has a lot of things that can still be explored, for sure.
Which of the Twilight covers is your favorite?
I mean, I love the original. We worked hard to get there. And there's something about the innocence of those hands, and then the darkness of the cover. And then there's this invitation, but also like a warning in the apple, right? Because we know that apples are trouble, and it's not been bitten into. So like, what is this person going to do with the apple? Are they going to take a bite? Are they not? There's a tension to that cover.
Do you have any other books that you're working on that are not related to Twilight?
In my computer right now, I think I counted 23 partially started books, none of them related to Twilight. So I can't start anything right now because I'm talking about Midnight Sun all day long and I'm doing a lot of things with Midnight Sun. It's really easy for me to be in force. And so I have to separate myself from that world to be able to write clearly. So there's kind of 3 right now that I'm excited to dive into when my brain is clear and I can go. I'll see what is most compelling when the light goes green. I'll sit down and whatever is pulling at me, that's what I'll work on.